things on the right side and the wrong things on the wrong side.
Cosine equals 87 divided by 105, the square root of 105.
I mean, I can't always be their little girl.
Kelly is no stranger to the world. She can walk, explore, and has no trouble making her needs known to her mother. Like all children her age, she is demanding, dependent, unpredictable, delightfully unique, and ever-changing. Knowing that these moments are swift and fleeting, her parents attempt to record the process and the milestones.
Okay, move it, Kelly. All right.
Like all children, as she makes her journey through childhood, many things will make a difference in how Kelly develops and how she turns out to be the adult she will become.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Development is many things, but above all, it is the interplay of many processes which play a part in defining the child.
You know, one of the great privileges and rewards of having worked in a field for a long time is that you see the progress, the real progress that's been made. To be sure, it's progress of how far above the floor you've gotten, the ceiling's still way up there, far away. But there are several things that were really dramatic in my lifetime. One of them was the recognition of two-way processes, reciprocity. That it's not just the parent who is developing the child, that it's a two-way process. That was a real breakthrough, and it happened in my lifetime.
Shannon is a little over 2 now, and Kelly's 14 months. So we've watched her for over 2 years develop the skills and the communication and the just all the things that she's developing, the process of her growth.
And we know there's going to be a lot more.
A lot more, yeah, and it's exciting to see and just daily watch how they grow and how they develop, how they're learning.
We're discovering as they are.
Yeah,
just
as parents.
how it evolves and how it all ends and begins and all the stuff in between.
You can do it.
But fundamentally, there were only two kinds of processes. The first were interacting with other human beings. And these, clearly, for our species, are the primary, right? Because it's through other people that then we get to the rest of the environment. We are, as Aristotle said so many centuries ago, we're social animals. And the social is the way we get to the non-social.
Kelly just loves music. She loves to dance. Just a couple weeks ago, she started doing Ring Around the Rosie with her older sister. She watched her older sister and some friends do it, and she just joined in. She just picked it up, and she just loves it.
The second aspect of process is interacting with specific objects and symbols in the environment which permit and invite exploration, manipulation, elaboration, imagination, creation. But of course, very often these things are going on simultaneously. You are interacting with someone in building something, in solving a problem, in dealing with symbols and objects at the same time as you are evolving in a ping pong game, as I call it.
Good job. Good job.
With what the caregiver gives, what the infant gives, they're playing a very subtle game that's escalating all the time. It's escalating all the time, getting more complicated. And what gets complicated outside then gets complicated inside. Children can can be the ones who are moving the process along by going to the next level of complexity. But the child cannot create the new environment and cannot put objects into it which are not already there, cannot suggest ways of looking at things. Parents can do that. They can say, I think he's about ready to read a book and not just look at pictures. I think that he's so interested in drawing. Let's get him this, let's get him that. Or the parent can give an explanation. The reason why this is so, honey, is this is called framing. And it's very important because it structures a new environment that is sensitive to where the child is. The parent, the teacher has to recognize that this particular child is about here and is now, so to speak, ready for a new horizon. We're looking now at really processes at two different levels. There's the process going on in the immediate environment of the child, and then there is the structure of that environment by others, which we've called framing, by parents in the first instance and in the most important instance, but also by teachers, by other adults, by older kids. They create a richer and more challenging environment. But it's especially important when parents do it. Why is this so? Because of what I've referred to so often. Development is a process of progressively more complex interaction, especially with other human beings with whom the child establishes an irrational emotional relationship or attachment. That is, of course, I'm talking about that four-letter word, love. People who love you and whom you are in love are much more potent figures in the environment. When they do something, when they bring something in, it has a wallop.
All right, now we want really tight legs on this one, okay? And the best effort you've done so far today, the very best one. Give it a go. There we go. Good legs. That's much better. Good, good. Come on, come on. Come on, hang it up. Okay. What do you think? A little early, right, right. Now, you know what
Childhood is not just an accumulation of experiences that can be had anywhere along the way. Experiences build on one another, each providing a basis for gaining and interpreting new experiences, each playing a small part in defining who the child is today and tomorrow.
The view that what happened earlier doesn't matter, it's what's happening now, is sort of a view of the child as like they're soft clay, and they can be molded, and then you can crunch them up and mold them again, and that the child themselves has nothing to do with the molding process. I don't believe that. I think that one reason early experiences is important is because children in part create their own later experience.
Children are best thought of for certain purposes as though they were scientists building some sort of model or theory of the world. They're trying to understand it, and they're constructing a view of the world and a view of other people, a view of their parents, a view of their teachers, and a view of the things they're trying to learn.
Good girl. All right. That was so brave of you to do that again. I'm so proud of you.
When you look at the child as somebody who is constructing their own knowledge, it puts quite a different slant on things.
Kids have to touch things, take them apart, move them here and there, talk to them. Kids, I love to have little kids talk to themselves because they're going over the process of learning. The basics are not reading and writing arithmetic. The basics are, number one, wonder, wanting to know everything on this planet. If you watch a 2-year-old, they're almost obsessed. They're into things. You have to protect the 2-year-old from the world almost because they're so obsessed with knowing everything. And then the second basic is discovery. That what the child discovers for themselves stays with them forever. You can't put the information in and have kids put it out and have them know it. And then the last basic for me is experience. Kids learn by being actively involved in their world.
Good play, good play.
Most people give experience an important role, especially parents, educational systems, therapists, all believe that, that the things they do with children is going to make a difference in how they turn out. So the equation one would have to use is to say, okay, there's a child that's born, and they have these kinds of experience, which changes the behavior, and then the child takes these new experiences to a new situation where they have new kinds of experiences, which is added in. So at each point in time, the child brings something to the situation, but also there are new experiences. As the child moves from the family into a daycare setting or a preschool setting, there's another set of experiences. Not only are the experiences changed, but there's a peer group, there's new primary socializers, the teachers. Child moves into the school system. Again, the environment provides lots of experiences which will have important implications for how that child turns out.
I think we know that in a classroom where teachers emphasize achievement and only achievement, that children in those rooms who are not doing terribly well academically are going to have a very rough time. But if a teacher values not only achievement, but values qualities like being good at games, good at music, having a good sense of humor, getting along well with other children, if a teacher in a class like that really reinforces kids for a wide variety of behaviors, not just being a good student, but a wide variety of talents and abilities, probably many children will be able to succeed and feel good in an environment like that.
We know that the early childhood years are ones where children learn their basic, acquire and their basic learning styles, creating, inventing, constructing. If you impose upon them a formal academic program, the only way they're going to learn that is through rote. So you impose a rote learning style when children should be developing their ability to create, to construct, to invent. And they carry that forward, and it really disadvantages them later on.
One of my students calls them the fourth grade washout, and they sit in the back of the room and they don't know the answer, and they don't really care very much about the answer, because these are the kids who have become too frightened to put out their opinion or their ideas. Flexible goals and the ability to make choices of early childhood pay off with a child who is able to deal with both successes and failures, and who is also able to make choices and communicate with other people and persevere on a project.
Relationships matter too, and there's undoubtedly none more significant than the attachment an infant develops with its mother.
Good morning. What is it? Hi.
Simply put, attachment is the basic sense of security that an infant gets from being close to one person in particular. Many feel that attachment is biologically based and may have consequences that last a lifetime.
The most important thing that matters when it comes to fostering a secure attachment, or an insecure attachment for that matter, is what transpires on a day-to-day basis between mother and babies. When mothers are responsive, when they know their babies well, read their babies' cues, are emotionally supportive and available to their babies, essentially not caught up in their own personal experiences too much, their babies sort of know that. They feel caught up in a relationship in which they're known well. They have positive feelings. Their distress is relieved when it occurs, and that's really the basis of a secure attachment.
It's not just infancy. That's part of parenting the whole way through, is trying to understand your child and be sensitive to what they're feeling and thinking and wanting, and also giving them timely autonomy.
Infants that have histories of secure attachment, histories of having their needs met consistently, having care been available to them on a consistent basis, expect that kind of care and believe in it and trust in it as they hit the toddler period. So they're not likely to be so difficult and tantrumy. they're more likely to accept limits that parents set.
When we look at the origins of insecurity in mother-infant interaction, we find one common denominator, which is the opposite of sensitivity. It's insensitivity. Caregiving that's sort of not uniquely suited to the child. It's not particularly responsive to the child. Caregiving that's often more dictated by where the mother's at, what she's feeling, the stresses she's under.
It may be, first of all, that in early attachment relationships, some very basic attitudes about social relationships and about the self are formed. So, for example, the idea that other people can be counted on, that people will be there for me, is a very basic attitude that may start forming even as early as infancy. Similarly, the expectation that I am a worthy person and that I am able to elicit the care I need from others may likewise be part of these early relationships.
It's well recognized that a secure attachment is a foundational basis for future development. The children who are securely attached to their parents seem to have almost a developmental advantage going into the preschool and early elementary school years.
What is that? What is that color? No. Red. Pink. Close.
The thinking these days is that they're more stress resilient, that they're capable of coping with stress. They have a degree of inner resource that's founded upon their knowledge that their parents are available to them. And they take that, and that knowledge, that feeling exists within them, and they carry that forward.
What color do you see now?
As the young child grows, others besides the nurturing parents begin to matter.
One important challenge in the toddler years is that children need to start weaning themselves away from their mothers and entering into a larger social world, a social world that includes brothers and sisters, other children, and other people. Because parents and their children are interacting less and that there's more physical distance between them, it's important not to think that the closeness of the emotional bond is diminished. It's not. It's just that it's showing itself in more distant kinds of interaction instead of having to be glued to each other.
It's also important for the child to interact with people who are not crazy about him, who regard that child as another nice child. Because that's a route to independence and self-confidence. However, it builds on the irrational relationship. So in effect, it's love that makes you free to become unloved.
Freud said that probably the two most important indicators of good adjustment are love and work. And I guess what I'd argue is we really should add a third, namely friendship. That the ability to develop a close relationship long before children are at a stage where they're going to develop an intimate romantic relationship, but nonetheless a close relationship, one based on reciprocity and caring and nurturance and support, that this represents a very important indicator of kids' adjustment.
In the long term, the kinds of skills that children are learning in preschool, the skills of starting playing with someone, making a friend, keeping a friend, sometimes the skills that go along with losing a friend and not falling apart, the kinds of skills that happen when you have a fight and you come out feeling okay about the relationship. All of those social skills are important for our later development. The same children who seem to be good at the social skills of peer interaction in preschool are also the children who are good at peer interaction in middle school and elementary school. And there's some research evidence that suggests that children who get along well with peers as elementary school children have better mental health outcomes as adults.
But Channel 4 is better because you can watch Isabella and Roman, who was once Roman, but now he's John Black.
But Channel 7 has the better looking guys on there.
Not even.
Yeah.
See, look at him. Now that is a freak.
One of the beauties of friendship is that kids can learn how to form friendships on their own without adults' intervention. You don't have to teach kids how to share. You don't have to teach kids how to argue back and forth. I call you a name, the other kid can call him a name. You don't have to teach kids that if you continually operate at that level, that you can't form a relationship which can be maintained over time.
When I take my pictures, I make sure, like, if they're happy, I'm happy, and I let it out on there.
The child also has to have a new set of skills for dealing with people who are different from the people he's dealt with inside his family. And that means that children in middle childhood, both males and females, are experiencing a whole variety of new things that require many adjustments on the part of them and on the part of their families.
In healthy families, the level of warmth doesn't change as parents make the transition with their child into adolescence, as they stay close and connected to each other. In those families, parents tend to become a little bit more permissive behaviorally because it's appropriate, especially in our society, for kids to have a little more freedom as they get older. But what's most important is that parents in healthy families give their kids increasingly more psychological space as they let them become individuals.
It's a tough society out there these days. It's not automatic that every kid's just going to make it into whatever life choice they want. Jobs, schools, whatever it might be. Parents know that. So many parents are very careful to help their kids. They're there as supporters of their kids, lifting them up into society, helping them, giving them whatever resources they have.
Dominique. Yeah!
No, I want him. No, I want him.
With mothers and fathers so critical to a child's growth, what should they do to help development along the way?
One piece of advice for parents would be to try to be good enough parents. Not to be perfect, not to turn their whole world into a child-rearing machine, but to leave room in their lives for the needs of their kids, to go back to their own childhood for the good stuff to share with their kids, and also to screen out some of the bad stuff that they don't want to reinforce from one generation into the next.
What's important to understand is that parenting occurs in a context, and that context really does have a major impact on the quality of parenting. So if a parent is functioning in the context of isolation, in the context of few economic resources, in the context of high levels of economic stress, and low levels of emotional support, that is going to influence the level of energy the mother has. That's going to influence her beliefs about how this child needs to be socialized in order to be able to cope in this environment.
If those things come together right, then the child has a good chance of developing into a self-actualized person. When they don't come together right, either because the parent or parents don't have it for the child, or because the environment itself is so dangerous and unstable that the parents can't be trustful of their own world, then the child grows up with certain anxieties and learns pathologic ways, self-hurtful ways to cope with an impossible world.
It really is not sensible to assume that there's a right and a wrong way of parenting, or that there's some universal style of parenting that we should all be aspiring to. Parenting is, I think, informed by the context in which it occurs.
About age 2 to 5, what you should be doing, and your grandmother knew this, there's nothing new here. Decide on what husband and wife, what mother and father believe to be the values they want to socialize, and they'll differ across culture and region, and then be consistent and be role models for that. That is, the worst thing you can do is to punish a certain behavior, but then display that behavior yourself.
I think children get a chance to see models in action when they look at other people, when they look at their parents, or when they look at siblings, or even when they watch their friends. They get a chance to see how people treat other people. Do they treat people with compassion and with respect, or instead do they see people being treated harshly and with insensitivity and indifference to other people's needs? So I think even when a child is watching, say, his or her parents interacting either between themselves or with their adult friends, children really are picking up messages about how you interact with other people in the world.
Communicate to your child in whatever way is natural for you, that you value the child. It doesn't have to be expensive presents. It doesn't have to be a lot of kissing. In northern Norway, parents don't kiss their kids. They communicate that the child is valued in other ways. But you must communicate to the child that he or she is valued. And in pre-adolescence and adolescence, begin to let your child go.
I think that society has evolved now over the last eons to a point that we're much more sensitive as a society to children's issues. It used to be, several hundred years ago, that people had to worry about physical survival. At the moment, for most of us, we've got that under control, and now we're worried about psychological survival. And so our concerns about children have become much more subtle.
I think children are entitled to a childhood, and we need to know what it is, because it is fast disappearing from this planet. Childhood hasn't been in all that long. It was a time when children were treated like adults. They worked in the fields, they worked in the mines. And I think that children have to have a childhood. Otherwise, they spend the rest of their lives trying to figure out what they're about. There are great psychologists, great therapists who try to help people find their childhood. They shouldn't have to do that. Children should have memories of a time when they were respected and loved as children. It's a whisper in time, childhood.
I got a big eye.